Hello and welcome to the Space Team's texture import tutorial. My name is Alex Shane, and today we'll be going through just a couple of programs that we use in the Space Team's texture import workflow. First program we're in here is Blender. We have a little model of a capsule here. It has all default Space Team's materials on it right now, nothing custom. And the first thing we'll do is we'll add a custom material because not everything that you'll ever have in your models is just plain metal or plastic or something like that. So let's add a little tag on this protruding element over here. And the way I'll do it, you don't have to do it this way, of course, but I'll do it by going into edit mode with tab and just duplicating this face over here, Shift D, and then I can move it around a bit, but I'm just going to snap it back to where it was with right click. And then I'm going to scale it down just a little bit, doesn't really matter how much. And then that was S, by the way, and then left click to confirm it. And then I can scale along its normal vector just to offset it a little bit from the surface, Alt S, and then just kind of move it away a little bit and then left click or enter to confirm. You can see it was about 4 something millimeters. Okay, now we have where we want to put our tag. So let's add a material to it. We already have one here. It's convenient. Okay, let's call this tag 1. All right, and it's an image texture here. I already had that set up from before, but the way you do is basically you click here. We can remove this just to show it again. Let's just add that image texture. And to select an image for it, right now it's blank, it's nothing. I'm gonna hit open, and here I have a tag 1 image. Just double click that. Nothing happened. Why? Because the material is not applied. So make sure the face is selected. Currently it's M_radiator. Okay. Let's click on tag 1 and assign. Nothing happened, right? Well, something did happen, but it's a black square. Why? Because we are not, we're still on the old UV map for this. We haven't assigned a new UV map to tell it what the coordinates are. So let me move this out of the way and go to UV editing up here. And you can see this is where that face is on this tag image, right? So we want it to occupy the whole thing. So what we'll do for that is hit U to pull up the UV unwrapping menu, and we're just gonna unwrap. And you can see it kind of cuts off part of it. So what we can do is just either move it in the X direction if we want to keep the scale, or we can just move these vertices, hold shift to select multiple ones. We can just move them G, X, move them along the X direction there. If we want to scale it, I'm going to right click to get out of that. Let's just select all the vertices, G, X, and move them this way. We'll preserve kind of the aspect ratio of this image. Okay, so now we can see it popped up here. Great. Okay, let's go back to layout, and we can see the whole thing. So this is all still one model, but now it has an extra material on it called tag 1. Space teams will not, by default, read this into it. It won't know what to do with it. It's not part of the default list of materials, which is totally fine because we have a procedure that we're going to go through for how to do this. So let me first export this. Go to export, and we'll export GLTF 2.0. Click that. There's already one in here. I'll overwrite that. Just go through the export properties here real quick. If you have the object selected, which we do, it's outlined in orange. We can say selected objects. That just limits the selection if you have a bunch of things in there. You can play around with these if you want, but that's probably the main one you want to use. Transform, don't click Y up. The Y axis is not up in here. It's a horizontal one. Don't do that. Then under data, mesh, if you have any modifiers that you have on your model, apply those so that they show up. That's about it. Obviously UVs, normal maps, all that kind of stuff. You want that. Under material, make sure materials are set to export. That is just necessary to carry over the data of which faces carry which materials. And that's about it. So we'll hit export, and it's done. Okay, so now we'll move over to Visual Studio, or you could use Visual Studio Code or any text editor to edit a Space Team's simconfig file. So let's hop over to that. Okay, and now we're looking at our simconfig file. This is called entity editor test.json, right? It's just the one that I'm using. You put this in your own sim, but basically, uh, we have a bunch of the usual stuff in here, like just the sim entity, the spectator that is going to fly around. We're going to control that to observe uh, the model. So we can scroll past all of that stuff. And what matters is this entity loaded. This is how we load all these kind of like imported models in here. And now there's something new here. This has not been included in past versions, but now we have a materials parameter under model import. So previously it was just the scale and the path to it, which is right here. But now we have materials. So I've already set it up to have this tag one in here. And it's also going to have, right, that tag1.png texture. So this texture is going into the albedo, which just means color slot. And the rest are just there as examples. We didn't really do anything with them, but we'll just set it up this way. So uh, what what this does is it'll apply the image texture directly as you saw in Blender. Metallic will tell you if it's a metal or not. I set it up as being a metal, one, right? But we could just as easily make it also not a vector. We could just say 0.0, and that's going to make it a non-metal, okay? Roughness, this could also be a color texture of some kind, representing the roughness of it. It'll be a black and white image, but we don't have one, so we can specify just a vector, or we could also just as easily say scalar. 0.8, range of 0 to 1, right? 0.8 is pretty rough, so it's not going to look glossy at all. The gloss parameter here is just the inverse of roughness. It's 1 minus the roughness, but you don't need to put it in. If both exist, it'll prioritize roughness and it won't even use gloss. But sometimes you're not provided with a gloss map for a very complex custom material. So if that's the case, just basically use whichever one you have of these. If both are in there, it'll use roughness. It'll ignore gloss entirely. For the normal map, you can use, again, a texture asset of some kind. If I had a tag1 normal.png, that's where I would put it. But I don't have that, so I'm just going to use this is 001 vector. And this one does have to be a vector because a normal map is, it has to be a color map. And then emissive, you can make it emit light. Typically, most textures, like most decals, like the kind of tags that we're doing, that will not have any emissive. But if you have a map for it, put it in there with the same kind of format as albedo here. And that's about it. So now let's see this in action in Space Teams. Okay, we're in Space Teams now, and let's go into our sim. Here's our entity editor test already selected, and let's get into the simulation. And here is the capsule, and you can see, let's fix that exposure real quick. You can see all the materials did import exactly as you'd expect. And now we have the tag, right? This is not, this image is not in Space Teams at all. It was imported at runtime, just as we told it to. And yeah, that's about all there is to importing images. You can create a material as complicated as you want, just by using all those maps. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.